Hi, my name is Deb Kennedy. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the financial aid officer at the Faculty of Law at the University of Victoria. And here's my contact information. If you'd like to reach me, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help. It's always an honor and a privilege to acknowledge and respect the Lekwungen speaking peoples on whose traditional territory the university stands, and the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanich peoples whose historical relationships with the land continue to this day. So this video is an overview of the financial aid available to our law students. It's a little bit more robust and complicated than what's been available to you traditionally for undergrad. So it's a good idea to go through this. There are a variety of sources from which UVic law students get their financial aid. Typically, students can get aid from student loans and grants, scholarships, bursaries, and we have two streams of bursaries at the school. We have a Faculty of Law bursary process and a general UVic bursary process. There are also private scholarships, awards, and bursaries that I will notify you about when I know about them. Some students get contributions from their Indigenous bands, employers, or community groups. Then we have a couple of funds within the Faculty of Law within the university. We have one called the Diversity Access Grant, which is for extraordinary expenditures for specific groups. We also have the Law Student Emergency Bursary Fund, which is a new fund. And then we have emergency funds and loans for some extraordinary situations. So if you find yourself in a financial bind, it's always a good idea to get in touch. So student loans, and most students are familiar with student loans. Student loans and grants must be applied for through your provincial student loan provider. I don't actually deal with student loans for the most part in my office, though I'm happy to guide you to a place that can help. Typically, Student Awards and Financial Aid, who is the financial aid office for the university as a whole, will help you with student loan questions, forms, or issues, and their contact information can be found right here. The Faculty of Law deals with scholarships a little bit differently than most schools do. When you're accepted to the Faculty of Law or a continuing student, you're automatically considered for one of many scholarships that are given out to top applicants and students. For incoming students, the law admissions office deals with scholarships, and the front office deals with them for continuing students. There are some scholarships that you need to apply for, but it's best to get in touch with the office that deals with them to discuss those. One of the funds that I've mentioned for extraordinary expenditures is the Diversity Access Grant. The purpose of the Law Foundation of BC Diversity Access Grants program is to promote more equitable access to legal education and to alleviate economic disadvantage. These grants will be awarded to help meet the extraordinary needs or expenses of law students in financial need, and in particular, those students in the following categories: students with physical, mental, or learning disabilities, Indigenous students, students with family care responsibilities, and students from a disadvantaged socioeconomic background. There are a variety of examples of eligible expenses, and they include but are not limited to travel for family emergency or responsibilities and support, travel to attend cultural or community obligations, medical, dental, or vision care expenses for the applicant or dependents that are not covered by insurance programs, expenses incurred to enable participation in academic, community service, student governance, career development, or networking activities pertaining to the Faculty of Law, expenses related to accommodation of a disability or medical condition, and other expenses, of course, of similar kinds to those listed above. You must directly apply for this grant, which if approved, is reimbursable on a receipt provided basis. So if you have questions about the Diversity Access Grant, please feel free to get in touch with me. A new fund that we have is called the Law Student Emergency Bursary Fund. This is one or more bursaries that are awarded to undergraduate students in the Faculty of Law. The bursary is intended to offer students a one-time financial assistance in the event of an unforeseen emergency or circumstance while attending the University of Victoria. Unforeseen emergency circumstances cannot relate to tuition or living expenses. Rather, they're expenses that include things like emergency dental surgery, expenses from bereavement travel, or expenses from an accident. Again, you must apply for this fund to be considered. So if you have questions about this fund, please just get into contact with me directly. Our office administers additional emergency or extraordinary expense funds, as do Student Awards and Financial Aid, or SAFA, and First People's House for our Indigenous students. If you have extraordinary or emergency expenses, or if you're struggling financially, it's important to get in touch with me. While we're not always able to help, we will take a non-judgmental and confidential look at your situation to see if there is a fund that suits your particular needs, or if there's anything else that we can do to help. I'll now talk through the Faculty of Law bursary process. Bursaries are non-repayable grants that are designed to ensure that students who qualify for legal education won't be denied access due to their financial circumstances. There are two bursary pools available to students registered in the JD or the JID program. The university has a general fund administered by Student Awards and Financial Aid, or SAFA, and the Faculty of Law has its own bursary fund. In order to be eligible for the Faculty of Law bursary, you must apply for both the Faculty of Law bursary and the general UVic bursary. You can, however, apply for only the general bursary and not the Faculty of Law bursary. The Faculty of Law bursary is decided in October or November, while the general bursary is dispersed in January between the add drop date and the tuition due date. This means that for most students, they receive their provincial student aid, their student loans in September and in January. Then if they qualify for bursaries, they'll receive the Faculty of Law bursary in November and the general bursary in January. In addition, there are private bursary scholarships and awards available throughout the year from a variety of sources. When I send out emails, I will always send out private bursary scholarships and awards that I'm knowledgeable of. So make sure you read your emails all the way through. How do bursaries of the Faculty of Law work? To help offset the expense of tuition, the Law Faculty awards approximately $350,000 in bursaries to both our incoming and our current students. Each year, law students receive a similar amount from the General University's Bursary Fund. Between these two bursary programs, we're usually able to meet almost 100% of students' financial need as we calculate it. All bursaries are determined based upon an individual analysis of financial need and are not intended to be a replacement for student loans or for savings. Information about the bursary application process for both the Faculty of Law and the General University is distributed through the incoming student listserv. Application instructions will be sent through the listserv. They're also available on our websites. The Faculty of Law bursary deadline happens twice a year. The summer deadline is generally May 15th, with decisions made in late May or early June. The fall and winter deadline is June 30th, with decisions made in early October or November. If a deadline falls on a weekend, we will adjust the deadline to the next Monday. The general bursary administered by Student Awards and Financial Aid, or SAFA, deadline happens also twice a year. The summer deadline is June 1st, with decisions made in late July. The fall and winter deadline is October 15th, with decisions made by the end of December, disbursement in the third week of January. Please make sure you check SAFA's website, as they do adjust these dates some years. Before you apply for bursaries, make sure you apply for provincial financial aid. Bursaries will generally not be processed for students who do not make use of available financial aid. There are exceptions to this, and if you have questions about it, please make sure and get in touch. Make note of all due dates, as they are not flexible. Please put them in your calendar so that you do not miss them. Collect your documentation. Most students will need to provide their student loan notice of assessment, their tax assessment, their GST refund statement, and a typical pay stub from their summer employment. If you own assets like real property or have accounts like RSPs, you will need statements corroborating your equity or savings. If you're having a tough time with any questions or collecting documentation, please email or call or stop by my office. The majority of students who do not qualify for bursaries do so because they did not provide documentation despite repeated requests. As you're applying, please try and collect all of your documentation prior to filling out the application. If you need to update or change information on the application, you may do so as long as your application is in draft form. If you need to change the information on your application after a deadline, please do so by emailing me. Please remember to make ethical choices. Contributions from your family, band, law firm, employer, or any other source should be noted on the application. If you feel you have extenuating circumstances to which the rules should not apply as they do to others, please make sure and note that on the application or send me an email. Redact sensitive information. By this, we mean we do not want your social insurance number. We do not want your bank account number. Please make sure sensitive information is not visible. The awards are based on a mathematical calculation of financial need. They are not competitively given. Because the bursaries are considered a last resort for students, students are expected to maximize their resources. This is measured against objective criteria, taking into account funding and available funds from a variety of sources, as well as individual circumstances. Once all students have had their unmet need calculated, this is totaled, and it's called the global need. The global need, or the amount of need required by all students, is compared to the bursary budget available. Then the percentage of the global need that the Faculty of Law is able to meet is calculated. For example, if the global need is $400,000 and the available budget is $350,000, we may choose to meet 80% of the global need. This leaves some room to meet appeals and students whose needs drastically change. In the past, we have met between 70 and 100% of global need. Students who qualify for bursaries are matched up with named bursaries whose criteria they match. Please note that frequently the criteria for the named bursaries will be broad. The bursary may name a desired group to receive the money, i.e., the money should go to a student from Nanaimo, but may only name this as a preference. An example, there's a preference given to a student from Nanaimo. In this case, if there are no qualified students who meet the criteria, we can give this award to someone who does not. Students who opt out of receiving named bursaries and any excess beyond that available from named bursaries will be given money from the Faculty of Law Access Bursary. Requesting to opt out of named bursaries will not decrease your chances of getting a bursary. It just comes from a different source. If you receive a bursary, we do ask that you thank the donor. This can be done by following the instructions on your notification. How is individual unmet need calculated? The information from each application is put into a worksheet for each student that applies objective information along with individual circumstances to weigh each individual's needs against that individual's resources. If your need is greater than your resources, that is your individual unmet need. Need includes things like tuition and fees, books and supplies, which includes a fund for a laptop, the cost of living expense allowance, which depends on your individual living circumstances and dependents, expenses for family obligations such as child support, childcare, travel expenses, and in some cases, partner tuition, co-op fees paid during that academic year, and other allowable expenses. Other allowable expenses is a broad term, and if you have questions about this, please make sure you ask before assuming that other expenses you might have will be considered other allowable expenses for bursary purposes. Resources include the following: summer savings calculation. The question we ask is, what should you have saved over the summer rather than what you actually saved? This is calculated by multiplying your net income for the summer, subtracting out the cost of living allowance for that period, and multiplying the answer by 75 cents for every dollar. Lost resource allocation. If you choose not to work or take 3 academic terms in a row that is not part of a co-op program, you will be assessed a lost resource allocation. Other sources of funding, such as your partner's income for the academic calendar year, government child care subsidy or child support payments, and student loan funding. Assets. This includes vehicles, particularly those over $10,000. Scholarships and other awards. Contributions made by your family, community, or band, or employer. Other money you might have access to, such as social assistance or other reported resources, GST rebate, and your tax refund from the last year. A lot of students ask after the fact why they didn't get a bursary, and I'll just go over some of the main reasons. The first question I would ask is, did you meet all of the deadlines? Did you turn in your documentation or call or email to discuss why you didn't? Do you have significant assets? Did you work over the summer or earn a very high income? Did you receive significant contributions from other sources or scholarships? How generous was your student financial aid? This is particularly an issue for students who come from Alberta, as Alberta tends to be very generous with their student loans. Did your living situation affect your eligibility? This tends to be an issue more for students who live with their parents, because the cost of living allowance is lower. Are you enrolled in only one term? Did you take 3 academic terms in a row? If your circumstances change over the course of the year, you are obligated to tell us. If necessary, we will reassess your bursary eligibility. The most common circumstance that affects bursaries is co-op. Students sometimes decide at the last minute that they would like to take a co-op. If you think there's a possibility of being enrolled in only one term, it may be best just to apply for that term. We can always adjust the bursary if you end up taking classes in 2 terms. Because we give faculty of law students their bursaries early in the year, a change in circumstance may mean that we have to take back some of the bursary money, which can be uncomfortable. The best way to deal with changing circumstances is just to keep a line of communication open with the financial aid office. You will get emails from Student Awards and Financial Aid, or SAFA, regarding your bursary award. These emails will tell you how to accept the awards. You need to accept the awards according to the instructions. Once the money has been accepted and applied to your tuition account and outstanding fees, you may request a check for the remainder of the funds. If you have other financial related questions or difficulty with the process, please reach out. I'm happy to help. I'm also happy to help you budget or talk through a situation that you may need help with. Thank you for listening, and I hope this explained the process a little bit.